Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this session. My name is Shawa. I'm the presenter. So we will be talking about how to switch from non-tech to tech, especially in data and AI. Um, and I'm going to talk about the reasons for switching, and why would someone choose data and AI as a career path. We'll talk about different options because if you would like to work in tech, you can choose software engineering, data engineering, DevOps, data science, and machine learning, and also business intelligence. There are many different options. We'll discuss that, and we can also discuss whether which path is the right choice. Um, and I'll leave some questions for some time for you to ask questions. Um, as usual, I'd like to start the session with some questions from the audience. So I sort of know where you guys come from, your background, or if you have any specific questions that you bring today. And I'll address some of those questions at the beginning, and then we'll jump into the presentation. So feel free to send your questions to Zoom chat, and uh, and I'll go through some of them before we get started. And since the topic is about, switching from non-tech to tech, I'm also curious to know uh, what makes you, interested in switching or, work in tech. So feel free to share your thoughts and experiences as well. Thanks, Rat, for asking the first question. While we're waiting for more questions to come in, I can address the first one. What would be the best way for a fresher to get a job as a data analyst? Where to look? I think some of the questions might be similar, so the answers might be repeating. So first of all, if you would like to work as a data analyst, I think it depends on if you mean you're just a new grad. It depends on your background. If you don't come from a data analytics or data science program, then you obviously need to pick up the technical skills first. So I would say gain tech skills first, and for data analytics and BI in particular, then you need to learn SQL. Python is not a must-have for some of the data analyst jobs, but it would be great if you know Python. And then you need to learn data visualization. Um, and there's some tools such as Tableau, Power BI that you need to learn. Um, and most importantly, you need to build uh, portfolio projects. So that will help you stand out. And for BI jobs, I think visualization is probably the best way to showcase your ability to work with data. Um, and you can publish that on Tableau Public or Power BI Public. You can push that to GitHub as well. So that would be my recommendation. We'll discuss that in details. That's one of the things we'll have a deep dive discussion on. Where to look for those jobs? I think there are a lot of different places. LinkedIn, Indeed. There's some popular like Zip recruiters. There are a lot of places where you can look for jobs. If you Google or even ask ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure you'll get a long list of them. But I would definitely start from LinkedIn because it's also a great way to sort of start networking with people, talking to hiring managers, peers, and also recruiting agencies. I think in a tough job market, being able to stay in touch with recruiters is also very important. Okay, there's some interesting questions. Cool. Got lots of questions. All right, we'll get to some of these. Second question, are companies interested in people that switch from one career into data rather than just starting their career in data and having more experience? Um, yeah, okay. So I guess your question is related to like, career switcher. For career switcher, um, and obviously if someone has already worked in the data industry, they will have an advantage. That's a no-brainer. But I think the data industry in general is welcoming to career switchers because to be, to do well in data analytics and data science in general, I think you not only need to have hard skills, including like working with different tools and programming, you also need to have like good communication skills and analytical skills. So analytics skill doesn't really mean that you know how to write Python or statistics. And sometimes when you work with executives, right, they're very quick to numbers and understanding the metrics. They sort of have gone through that kind of training, right, over the years. So when they look at a spreadsheet, they will be able to pinpoint like, the the useful information very quickly. And that requires some experience or being able to find issues, challenges in data and in reports. So those are useful analytic skills to have. So it doesn't mean that you're the best programmer and then you'll, automatically become the best data scientist. So I think from that perspective, career switchers, will usually find success in landing data jobs if they have a strong portfolio, they have, picked up the hard skills, but if they can also sort of transfer some of the existing skill set from other industries that they've gained from into this field, leadership skills, communication skills, all of these are, even project management skills are very important. So I would say the data industry is pretty friendly to career switchers. But there are different types of data jobs, right? I would say BI, data analytics, and data science will be relatively easier to break in. But if you want to get into machine learning, AI, or data engineering, I think will be a different story. So on the AI side, if companies are looking for research scientists, then I think it'll be very hard to get in if you don't come from tech background or if you don't have a computer science or advanced degree, right? Or if you would like to work, as MLOps, then usually they look for experience. These are more like positions such as data engineer. They usually look for like at least 2 to 3 years of experience. So if you only have done some coursework, it will be hard. It is very, still likely to get a data engineer job or AI engineer job, but you'll need to build up a lot more experience along the way. So working on projects will definitely be very useful. We've seen a lot of students coming from business background who have never done coding before. They join boot camps and they will graduate and getting a data job. But to be very honest, like how many of them actually land like, a research type of jobs or advanced or senior data scientist or AI jobs? Not that many. I would say most of the, bootcamp graduates, they will be able to work sort of in a junior to intermediate level data science or, AI jobs. But it will be very hard to get a very senior level position. So experience do matter for senior jobs, but for entry level or junior level data science or data engineer jobs, I think most of the career switchers, if you can spend enough effort on that, on building your portfolio, you will be able to break in. But the past 1 to 2 years have been sort of a little bit tough for beginners because, well, due to the job cuts. But I think it's getting better in the last month or two, over the summer actually. And I heard that some big tech companies are also starting to rehire. Our hiring partners also are reaching out to hire students. So that's great news, I think. So yeah. Next question. I hope I answered your question, but feel free to ask follow-up ones. What is the starting salary for data analyst? How long does it take to become a senior data analyst? How long? It really depends. I've seen people staying in the same job for 3-4 years, but still cannot get promoted. But I've also seen students, just hopping from one job, to another after 6 months, 12 months, and then they get easily promoted to be senior. So I think when you're switching to a different company, you might be more likely to get promoted to be a senior data analyst. Working for the same company sometimes really depends if really depends. In some company, it's even hard to get its data scientist title because the HR may think that, well, you're not really a real scientist. So it really depends on how HR set the policies. But yeah, so if you would like to, get to become a senior data analyst, I think one route is just to switch jobs and talk to recruiters. You might be able to achieve the goal faster, but of course you need to look at your career path and trajectory and to see, maybe staying with the same company sometimes will make more sense. It also depends on the type of work you will be doing. In terms of the starting salary, I think in Canada will be around between 60 and 80,000 for a junior data analyst. And in the US it will be around like 80, 70,000 USD. There's a pretty big gap, I think, or difference between the starting salary of data scientist and data analyst. My job will be automated by AI. I'm a customer service agent. Where do I start first? I think that's a good question. WeCloudData is an AI training academy, but we also own a boutique consulting company. So we are sort of helping our clients deploying large language models or, providing AI solutions to those companies. I see this, surge in demand in terms of building chatbot or AI ops or automation driven by like AI related tools. So yeah, I would say I actually have a friend who sort of work in a startup that just analyze all the voice logs, right, from customer service department. They're trying to build tools to automate that process. So this is definitely one of the most highly impacted, industry. My recommendation would be, if you want to switch career to data and AI or some other tech, usually you need to pick up programming. It's not really, for everyone. Some people just don't enjoy it. Like, you have to understand your motivation. Are you doing this because it simply pays better, or, it's futuristics, or because you actually like it? So, ideally, this is a good, paying job, and you also really like doing that. So my recommendation would be definitely start from some, taking some online courses and see if you like coding. If you absolutely hate it, maybe you should consider other, career path. One of the interesting job titles that pop up in the last few months is prompt engineering. So I think that's certainly interesting because, some of the jobs will be replaced or automated, but that also generates the demand for other types of jobs. And I think prompt engineering is one of those. I just don't know how this hype or this trend of generative AI is going to last, because I've also, heard people saying that, the next wave, right, is not just generative AI, but it's more really just applying AI to industry verticals. So that's why you see a lot of startups trying to fine-tune large language models to a specific domain. So that means it's going to become even more powerful. But it still need, humans to sort of, take control of, the workflow. I don't think it's going to be fully automated. So For example, in marketing, you can have people, or in the news industry, publishing industry, you still need editors. And large language models or generative AI will make their work more efficient, because now, instead of, if you're doing research, and or maybe do competitive analysis. In the past, we may need to read a lot of articles, but now maybe you can just let ChatGPT sort of summarize everything for you. So it will definitely make save a lot of time, but you just need to know how to write the right prompt template. Maybe in the future this is going to become even easier, but I think you still need people to be able to understand how to prompt these large language models and get the correct output. And when more and more people starting doing, and when this technology become even more advanced, I think you will still need people who can specialize in even just prompt engineering. That will create, I think, a lot of job opportunities. I've heard some like crazy salary, people paying like $290 dollars, for someone who can write really good prompts. So give it a try. I think that's just a skill set that everyone needs to have, just to learn how to work with these large language models. Will create a lot of opportunities. That would be my recommendation. So start with prompt engineering. There will be a ton of opportunities for services, service companies out there that can help people automate things, create prompt templates, and also AI ops is going to become really hot. So yeah, automation using Zapier, but it requires you to sort of be familiar with many different tools, but still understand like the business process. So automation is definitely the next wave. And this is something I highly recommend everyone to sort of familiarize yourself with. But I don't think it's going to take, for example, completely replace software engineers and data scientists. The technology is simply not there yet. What to start from if you have no technical background? I think that's exactly what we will be discussing today. So please wait till my presentation. I'd like to switch from software engineering to data science. Can you give me some advice? I think I actually see more data scientists switching to software engineering. You probably need to figure out like whether you want to just move from software engineering to data science completely, stop doing software development, or you pick up some data science skills and turn yourself into a machine learning engineer. I would encourage that, because I think we have a lot of data scientists in the job market, and the supply is actually pretty big. But if you're a data scientist who also know how to write, decent code, understand the software, development life cycle, your skill set and experience will be very valuable, because, think about ChatGPT. Most of the clients, so in the past, most of the consulting projects we got are about building some sort of data pipelines, setting up infrastructure. So that's data engineering. Then when it comes to BI, it's building dashboard. When it comes to data science, most of the projects we have worked on in the past are related to machine learning, but it doesn't necessarily involve like deploying models into production, right? But things have changed. Now, when everybody talk about like, okay, I need someone to build a chatbot for me that can sort of work with fine-tuned large language models, that means you not only need data scientists who can fine-tune these large language models, but you need to turn that into a product. At the very least, it needs to be an API, a scalable API, where your actual chatbot, right? Because building chatbot is not just data science. You need software engineering. Or you sort of need to integrate that into your existing platforms. And then it needs to interact with the machine learning API. So I think that's the gap between data science and software engineering. And maybe that's the reason why machine learning engineering is becoming very popular right now. So I think if you come from dev background, learning more about data science, but then focus on building machine learning products will be very interesting career path for you. What certifications should one get to become a data analyst? How is AI coming into picture, and what should one do to keep up with it? This is a similar question. First of all, regarding certifications, I don't think you need to. First of all, if you just want to become a data analyst, you don't really need certification, because it doesn't add much value when someone's going through a resume. It's better to show them that you can actually build like BI products. By the BI products, I mean maybe a dashboard, right, that you can showcase. But it need to be really decent ones that can sort of catch people's attention right away. I've seen a ton of dashboards, but most of them are boring, or people simply don't know how to present or tell data stories. And so that requires some experience, or maybe talking to experts and get feedback, right, on how to improve. But there are contracting opportunities out there where companies just want to hire Power BI specialist. There are jobs like that. So if you think you're interested in that, then I would recommend just getting Microsoft and Power BI, certified, so you become a specialist, or maybe you get really good at, Tableau, you get certified. But again, I think getting certified is easy but it doesn't necessarily mean that, if you know these tools, then you're great at visualization, because there are lots of people who are very good with those tools, but they just don't know how to visualize data properly. So I would recommend just, get really good at data analysis, right? Working with SQL, extracting data and data modeling, and then know how to do visual storytelling. And then if there's a need, then just get Power BI certified. Maybe I think that will add some value. And how is AI coming into the picture? I think working as a data analyst, in the future data analyst will definitely need to be a good communicator, and then you need to be able to work with AI tools such as ChatGPT. ChatGPT in a way that it can already sort of write some code for you, right? But the thing is, a company's big data is usually stored in the database, and those are structured data. And I think companies are less likely to feed all of their big data directly into ChatGPT, right? So there are plugins out there that allow you to sort of upload, Excel files, and it can sort of just even run, generate the Python or SQL code and just sort of execute that in a runtime environment. I think there's a long way to go there. What I've been seeing is that companies are building internal proof of concept where they can actually use prompts or prompt engineering, write some useful templates, and then ask tools like large language model, open source models, or ChatGPT to write the query for them. But you still need to be able to execute those queries. And once the query returns the tables or whatever data and insight, it requires the data analyst still to understand those. At this point, I don't think generative AI is able to sort of dig into your data and then just analyze everything automatically for you. It may still take some time to get there. So as a data analyst, I think you need to be comfortable with generative AI tools and leverage them to make your work, make you yourself become more efficient. And it can write SQL code for you, but you still need to be able to interpret the results. Because a lot of times, like if you just want to say, I want to select all the data points from this table in my database and filtered on, country equal US or Canada. And, so it doesn't take very advanced skill set. Because once you've done that a couple of times, then you know how to do filtering in SQL. It's super easy, right? Why don't we just automate that? I think that should be automated. So it's just like talking to Jarvis and asking it to sort of write some code for you and then execute and get the results, but you still need to interpret that. So I think that's very important. So AI is definitely going to make our lives easier, but you still need to be able to sort of actually analyze the data. So it actually frees up your time of writing all the complex queries. Now you can actually focus on analytics side. I think that's a very important skill set to have. What advice would you give someone who doesn't have the technical background but took boot camps for the technical skills and now looking for a job in data analytics and business intelligence? Yeah, I know there are a lot of boot camp graduates out there. The job market is a bit tough right now. Um, you know, I think in the past few months, when I talk to our hiring partners or data science managers, when we refer students to them, sometimes they feel like, okay, I'm looking for someone who's more like senior, more experienced. And just this morning, I was talking to someone who actually said, I actually have a junior job right now. So I think the job market is definitely getting better right now. So you definitely need to sort of persist and just keep looking for jobs. That's one thing you need to do. But at the meantime, I think one of the disadvantages for you is definitely that you already have the technical skills, but you probably don't know the best way to tell the story. Or sometimes because the job market is very competitive, there are a lot of bootcamp graduates or people who graduate from university program that have similar skill set. 10 years ago, like if you know machine learning, Python, Spark, it's very easy to stand out. But right now, there are so many people who already have similar skills. How do you stand out? Unfortunately, the only way to stand out is just project experience. It could be freelance project, it could be real project experience. Sometimes it's a little bit of a chicken and egg, situation because if you haven't worked as a data scientist, then how can you have real experience? I think I did a one session just last week. I sort of talked about how to gain project experience. There are a couple of options. The first one is just to see if you can find freelance project. That takes some effort. Start from your friend. Do you have friends whose company actually need data analytics help? Volunteer and spend a couple of months to help them solve some practical data challenges. And then you can add that experience to your resume. Or maybe go to the freelancing, website, see if you can get a freelance job. Now, the tricky thing there is you still need some sort of portfolio or some credibility there, right? Because why would people start or companies choose you who have never done any real projects? So things like GitHub, I think a blog post will all help, but the success rate might be quite low if you just go for freelancing yourself. So you definitely will need to start building your portfolio. So, and just yesterday, we actually hired someone for one of the teaching assistant position for the generative AI bootcamp we're about to launch. And then that assistant instructor that we talked to, he said, how did you even find out my information? He did apply, but he doesn't have actually teaching experience, and he hasn't really worked as a data scientist for a long time. So if you look at his resume, he seems to be pretty junior. But interestingly, I just have this habit of clicking on people's blog posts. Whenever they have a blog post, I like to click on it, and then I see him implementing transformers, ResNet, and some of the computer vision models just from scratch using Python. So he has the ability to read a paper and then just turn that into code. That was very impressive. Not a lot of people can do that. Even though he doesn't have a data science or machine learning or PhD background. But the fact that he's able to do that, and that caught my attention. I had a chat with him, and indeed, he's super good. So I think, I could have just, skipped his resume, but because he has a link there, and when I read the blog post, I was super impressed. So this works sometime, but not always. So I think it's just more effort you need to put into this. The thing with data science is as soon as you start the journey, I think you will be, it will be much easier for you to get the second and third jobs because, looking at some like alumni's career path, we noticed that some of them have worked on some sort of real client project in our program. And then 6 months later, they got another job. So we're actually now doing the third reference check for them now, let's say in a matter of 3 years. So it's interesting. So once you get your foot in the door, recruiters will start talking with you. And as long as you have the right technical skills, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find many new opportunities. But the biggest challenge is how do you break into the industry? So I think project experience is very important. Anyways, in short, I think you need to either work on freelance project, talk to your friends, see if you have any volunteer opportunities, joining some of the I think hackathons will be useful as well. It's very hard to find instructors who can teach generative AI right now. So we're also like, going out of the traditional like, route and just look into those authors who have published papers, or people who actually on the panel of those hackathons, and those are talents who are specialized. So if you join a hackathon, I think you'll you'll find some good networking opportunity and make some connections, and that may help you as well. So job search becomes pretty big project nowadays, I think. But first of all, you need to have the skills, and then you need to have experience. But once you get the foot in the door, I think it's a very exciting journey. How often are resumes discarded before they make their way to a human reviewer for not having any college education? So actually, I think for data-related jobs, education is not the most important filter. Some employers may put, masters, minimum of masters or PhD when they're looking for, data scientists who specialize in machine learning. But when it comes to data analytics, data engineering, usually people just require a bachelor's degree. So I don't think, I don't think you need to have a master's degree in order to work in the data industry. One of my suggestions for passing the ATS or automatic systems is that try to save your resume in PDF. So recently we've gone through hundreds of resumes on Indeed, and I noticed that Indeed, for example, Indeed is just one of the tools we work with. It displays PDFs directly in their platform. So, when I use the Kanban board, right, to go through, many candidates, a list of candidates, when I click on the link, it will show me the PDF directly. But whenever there's a Word document or a Word version resume, I'll have to download that first. And recently I've switched computer. I haven't actually installed like Word on my Mac. So it's not that convenient for me to open that. So I pretty much just skip all Word versions. So my recommendation would be just try PDF. It's probably better, I think. And if you would like to pass the screening, automatic screening, then you definitely need to hit the right keywords. I don't think college education is the most important keyword to have. And you can't really change that in a short amount of time anyway. So you just want to make sure that you hit all the right technical skills, related keywords. And then once you pass that stage and you get to talk to some hiring managers, and then you're going to use your project experience to impress them. Okay. Any recommendations for building portfolio projects from scratch, from Kaggle? Yeah. So if you're talking about building portfolio from scratch, I wouldn't consider most of the Kaggle projects as building something from scratch, because the data set is already provided and most of them are just CSV files. If you want to build an awesome portfolio project from scratch, I would say just have some come up with your original idea. Start from web scraping. That will always be impressive. And nowadays, if you would like to work in large language modeling as sort of an AI specialist, then web scraping is going to add a lot of value to your resume, because most of the company that want to sort of fine tune large language models to their own industry, they will need to do some sort of web scraping. Okay? So that you can have the right training data set to even begin with pre-training or fine-tunings. So that would be my recommendation. Kaggle projects, if you decide to work with Kaggle projects, try to find data sets that are more complex. Either a huge data set, right? It's a big data set that has many columns, or if the data set is relatively small, but if you can have like 5 to 6 CSV files, and they have some sort of entity relationships so that you can actually, merge and join those tables. And you can even load some of those data sets into your relational database, then start your analysis from database, from SQL queries. That's actually how real life data science projects start. You're always going to do data extraction. Where does data come from? Sometimes you have to scrape data, and most of the time, you're retrieving data from a relational database using SQL. So being able to show SQL experience is very important. Most people will put SQL on their resume, but when they talk about their portfolio project, I just don't see any SQL experience. So yeah, I hope this is helpful, but try your best to come up with some original idea, scrape your own data set, and then build machine learning models. Or if you can't build machine learning models from the data you scrape, at least build a visualization dashboard. I'm pretty sure whatever data you scrape, you will be able to build a dashboard. That's still very impressive. So that would be my recommendation. Okay, I see a lot of questions here. I'll try to get to those questions later. But let's follow the agenda now. So first, why do you even switch to tech? At first, I think one of the big motivation is just the overall compensation. It's still very well paid, right? I think data scientists, in general, are not compensated as good as software engineers. But software engineer, if you work for big tech, I think the compensation would be the best, right? But for traditional regular companies, I think data scientists are considered as very well compensated, and the ceiling can be really high. And the good thing about a career in data science or data analytics is that maybe you worked for the same company for 3 years and you start to get bored and you're considering and then you're not promoted to become a manager. What's the next step? And people usually actually switch industry, right? So working as a software engineer, if you switch industries, I don't think the industry knowledge is going to give you a boost, right? Because you're still writing software. But data science is different. Data science and analytics require a lot of industry or domain knowledge. So if you know the domain knowledge really well, I think you can, you'll be very valuable. And even talking to the business teams, if they know that you're not just a technical person and you also speak the same business language, you're much more likely to be successful. So, you spend 2-3 years in one industry, you feel like you hit the ceiling, and then you just switch to a different industry, your compensation will still stay the same or even become better because you already have 3 years of data science experience, but now you embark on a new journey where you need to learn the new business rules in the new business world. So that might be interesting. And that's why there are people who actually prefer to stay in consulting industry. They're extremely well compensated due to the fact that they have worked in many different industries, even though they're applying similar skill sets, similar tools, right? Of course, at the same time, you have to sort of catch up with the industry trend. You may switch from SAS, some GUI-based tools now to Python, or in the future, maybe Rust, Julia, I don't know, but the principles are still the same, right? And now you sort of adapting yourself to large language models, generative AI. But I mean, that's exciting. So definitely that's a good motivation for someone to work in tech or in data science or data analytics. It also gives the flexibility. I think a lot of data jobs are remote jobs. I was talking to a recruiter, New York-based recruiters who recently expanded to Toronto in Canada, and they said that, especially in Montreal, for some reason, like 60% of the jobs they place, those are remote jobs, which is good news. And as mentioned, I was talking to one of the hiring directors this morning for companies in the fintech space. Their requirement is that you have to work in office like 3 times or 3 days a week, but you still get to work like 2 days from work, 2 days working from home. So I think you do get the flexibility, and it's not a high pressure job. If you work in like retail, banking, or healthcare, unless you work in consulting, then sometimes you have to meet the project deadline. There will be pressure, but in general, I think data analyst jobs are not high pressure jobs. You really have to sort of work really, really late. And yeah, and it's again, you stay in touch with cool technology, and this whole industry is changing really rapidly. So it forces you to stay, in touch with the new technology. And whoever who can grasp or learn new technologies faster will have an advantage, which means that when large language model come out, or the generative AI stuff or deep learning, some of the traditional and classical machine learning algorithms sort of become outdated. So that means for someone who's a fresh graduate, who is more, who can learn faster and sort of know all the new tools and large language models, you actually can skip some of those. Maybe traditionally your disadvantage is that you haven't worked in data science space for many years, but now because you know a lot of the new technologies in this space, you actually have an advantage. It doesn't mean someone has 10, 20 years of experience in machine learning will always have a big advantage when it comes to large language modeling. So I think some companies are more often just looking for someone who can learn really quickly, because this field is changing fast. So that's I think that's another reason for career switchers to consider this field, I think. But there's so many things you can do in tech on why data. And I think if you work in data, first of all, even for software engineers, I think consider this as an upskilling opportunity. Even people who don't want to become a data scientist, I think it's worth it for you to learn data and AI, because as we discussed, knowing generative AI or data science is going to just make you become more efficient. Right? So consider this as an upskilling opportunity. And executives, product managers, they don't really need to sort of roll up their sleeves and write Python code, right? But if they can just improve their understanding of even just the data science project lifecycle, it's going to help a lot. We start to see more demand in generative AI, like the business level type of training, to train the business teams to sort of learn how to work with generative AI tools. Right? And then data jobs are in very good demand. Even after generative AI, ChatGPT, people may think that my jobs will get automated. I don't think it's going to happen that soon. But so if you look at the job market, it's still in very good demand. And I think the data field is also very good for someone to actually start their own boutique consulting business, right? So we've done that, and there are a lot of freelancing opportunities out there. And as I said, if you ever want to do a side job, even like if you work as a software engineer, and if you think that you're going to lower your pay to become a data scientist, maybe just consider doing that as your side job. But you do need to be able to sort of prove that you have data science project experience, and then you'll get some side project opportunities, which actually may even work better for you. And I've seen people starting their own consulting business, right, services type of business. Now with large language model and generative AI, it's very likely for someone who just have the software engineering and AI skills to build, a tool that can solve some pain points, and it can start selling these services. Whether it can become a massive business, it's very hard to tell. It also depends on your business skills, but just building some tools and sell that as a service, I think there are a lot of opportunities out there. I was just to give you another example. As I said, I was going through a lot of AI research papers, and I noticed that recently there's another large language models that was fine-tuned. It was very efficient. It outperforms some of the GPT algorithms. And then I immediately reached out to the author, who is a PhD student. I didn't get a response. So at the time, I thought, well, maybe she's not interested in teaching. But I was following this person on LinkedIn, and then just 2 weeks later, she just changed her title, and now she's like the founding member of a new startup. And then because of that paper, they got a lot of investment. and then just start a new company. And of course, she's not going to have the time to teach. But that's very interesting. So I think there are golden opportunities for people who's capable out there to start a small business, build a small product, and it can make a lot of money. So if you're ambitious, I think this is a great time for you to consider this. But of course, you need to invest a lot of effort to be able to get to that point, right? And what are some of the career paths in data? You can start usually from data analytics and BI. Not everyone is interested in like writing a lot of code, becoming a software engineer or ML engineer. Because the reason why data is good for careers, data industry is good for career switchers, is that a lot of people actually can sort of transfer their business skills into an analytics job, right? Because if you have the domain knowledge, or if you know how to sort of manage client relationship, because the data teams in many companies are actually just internal consulting teams. That means you need to be able to manage the internal client's relationship, right? Manage expectations, just to be able to communicate well. You don't necessarily need to be the person who's building the hardcore machine learning model, but if you can do a better job than data scientists explaining these models, and you can keep better relationship, you are the person who's going to get promoted. So I think there are a lot of great opportunities in data analytics and BI. And with some of these generative AI tools, I think it will become easier and easier for BI specialists and data analysts to be able to build advanced models by just prompting ChatGPT, or just use some sort of low code and no code AI tools to build, models and solve, business analytics challenges. So that's actually a very interesting trend. But it's relatively easier, right, to break into, even though it's still very competitive. But in general, there are more data analytics and BI jobs out there compared to data science and data engineering. So it's more competitive. It's lower entry, right, bar, but I think it's still like easier to get started. And many people will consider get into data analytics first, and then they work there for 1 to 2 years. At the same time, they try to upskill themselves, and eventually they want to become a data scientist. This is a very common path. And data scientists, I think DS jobs have been sort of the most popular jobs, trending jobs in the past, many years, right? It's still very much in demand, but I think it's changing a little bit, because traditionally, when when company or when you see someone have a data scientist title, many of them are actually doing data analytics work. Companies start to realize that having a skill set in terms of like building machine learning models is not enough. A data scientist will need to be very, very well-rounded. You're good at data analytics and visualization in general. You know how to build machine learning models, right? You can, you can hack things a little bit, and you can sort of work on engineering challenges as well. So I think if you want to sort of do well as a future data scientist, I think you need to learn more. That probably makes data scientists like the hardest among all, because you need to know many different things. Like, if you only know how to build some sort of machine learning models using Jupyter Notebook, it will be becoming harder and harder for you to become a data scientist, because companies are increasingly looking for talents that are more specialized, right? Unless you're looking for jobs that are more like a generalist type of job, right? And if you're really strong in communication, you can still find like data scientist jobs out there that require even more communication than technical skills. They're still called data scientists. But here, I think the way, how we define data scientist is that someone who's technical, right, who understand data analytics and visualization, machine learning, right, who know advanced analytics, but who also understand a little bit of AI and data engineering. So if you want to become a data scientist, that would be my recommendation. So data scientists who understand model deployment, or data scientists who understand data pipeline, is very important. Again, this morning I was talking to someone who's hiring a data scientist, right? And she said that Ideally, I'm looking for someone who have stronger data engineering skills because right now my team is relatively small. So I need someone who has strong data engineering skills. But once the pipelines are built, I need this person to be able to build machine learning models. Again, she's looking for this type of hybrid talents, but it depends on like what the team need, right? If you're joining a large company that has an established data science team, then they're looking for someone who's just good at advanced analytics and machine learning. You can become more specialized. But if you're joining a startup, then you have to do all kinds of things. And at the very beginning, maybe the data is not even ready. Even though you get hired as a data scientist, you are expected to do data cleaning, data engineering, automate things as well. You're going to learn a ton of things. It's going to actually make you more valuable, but it depends on, of course, if you like this type of job, because some people may not like it. So my recommendation for anyone who would like to go down this path is that learning Python SQL and machine learning is not enough. You have to invest more time on learning big data and also learn how to work with cloud. But once you can get a data scientist job like that, you'll be very well compensated, right? Data engineer, it's, I think, very hot right now. But the challenge with data engineering is that many companies are looking for experienced engineers, right? So it's relatively harder for someone who's a career switcher to get into data engineering. But again, it's totally possible, but employers are definitely going to prefer someone who already has at least 1 to 2 years of experience, because when it comes to data engineering, most of the time, it's not like hardcore software engineering. Like you're not building a software. So experience is actually more important. By experience, I mean experience working with all kinds of dirty data, different kind of scenarios. And you need to make a lot of small decisions, right? For example, you might be starting a new proof of concept project for your company. And maybe the project is to build some sort of chat agent or chat bot that leverages large language models. And of course, they need data scientists. But at the very beginning, you don't even have the right data, right? So what about like just getting the data, to train your fine-tuned models? Then you have to do web scraping, right? And then you realize that you have to continuously scrape those data from those pages. That means you not only need to be able to write, jobs to scrape data, and then you need to know how to automate and schedule that to run that on a daily basis. And sometimes the website structure has changed and your code will break, right? Are you able to sort of automate some sort of notification so you get notified when things break, so that doesn't contaminate the data, right? The data quality. So that is actually data engineering skills. So you need to be like very flexible. You need to sort of be able to learn a lot of things quickly in data engineering. And because you have to make a lot of decisions, for example, okay, we're going to automate this, but what tool are we going to use, right? Oftentimes you realize that you're making all kinds of decisions. If you're running everything, the entire pipeline on Amazon Web Services, the questions I sometimes get asked is, what type of instance do we need to go with? Sometimes it's trial and error. Cost is also very important. And when it comes to sort of the execution environment, are we going to use an EC2 instance, like basically just a server running in the cloud, or are we going to use serverless functions? It also depends on how long the scraping jobs is running, right? If we would like to automate everything, do we use Apache Airflow? And how do we, or where do we deploy the Airflow servers? And then you start to realize that data engineers sometimes sort of need to be familiar with systems or infrastructure. When you work for a tech company, maybe there are DevOps engineers, and there's platform engineers and architect that help you sort of set up everything. And then you just need to go in there and write code and build your pipeline. But when you work for smaller companies, you might be the person who's doing everything. So I think data engineers will need to definitely be ready just to be able to learn everything quickly, read a lot of documentation. And if you have that type of mindset, I think you'll definitely succeed in data engineering. It's also, I think, relatively easier for data engineers to sort of stand out by just working on really cool portfolio project. Again, I'm coming back to this example. I'm giving you this, like, I'm talking to this hiring director this morning, and then I submitted like a data scientist resume, and she said, well, actually, I'm looking for someone who knows Spark and SQL and Python, who can do more data engineering at the beginning and then do data science later. And then I just sent her another resume, which is a data engineering student. And that student had 2 portfolio projects. And she just replied with 1 word. She said, awesome. And I think the student is going to get an interview. So the trick I did there was that instead of sending the resume directly, because I know she's going to say that, well, I don't think he is that experienced, because you don't find like 2 years of experience, right? So I took screenshot from his GitHub. On his GitHub, he has his portfolio project and the data architecture diagram. So I sent her 2 diagrams, which is end-to-end, projects that involves, AWS, Airflow and all of these pipelines. And she got impressed. So I think if you can sort of visualize the data architecture in any kind of portfolio project you build, it will be very interesting. So definitely do this. Otherwise, it will be very hard for data engineers to sort of prove that they have the experience. Again, it's chicken and egg. If you have not worked as a data engineer, how do you demonstrate that you have the skills? Then I think adding visualization or the diagram will be very helpful. Machine learning, and then when it comes to data engineering, I think there are also different types of data engineers, right? So BI and data analytics, and you either focus on just building dashboard. So these sometimes are called BI developers because data modelings will be involved. Or maybe just BI and data analysts will build dashboards as well. But you're going to do a lot of ad hoc analysis and sort of like business analytics. But a lot of data analysts work on ad hoc reporting. That involves a lot of SQL and visualization as well, but you don't necessarily need to always build a dashboard because the business might actually just ask you some specific questions. They don't expect a dashboard. They will just say, give me some numbers, right? Give me some insight. So you do need to be able to work with Excel because that's the tool that most of the business users are familiar with. And for data science, there are data scientists that focus just more on the machine learning, right? So this is more specialized. In some companies, these are called ML researchers, right? But I sort of just group them under data science. But they're also data scientists just work on general analytics in a way that is kind of similar to data analyst, but you just need to be ready to sort of build predictive models whenever the need comes, right? So that means you can do a lot of different things, and it really depends on the internal client's need. Sometimes you need to build dashboards, and sometimes you need to build machine learning models. But the company is not expecting to hire, let's say, someone, a data analyst to build a dashboard, and as a data scientist, you're not going to do that. Well, you have to do all of these. So that's more generic analytics type of roles, and you're going to be called like a data scientist as well. Data engineers, typically people start from analytics engineering or analytics engineers. So these are data engineers who sort of work with data warehouses. Right? And it's still for BI and data science purpose, but analytics engineers are the ones who will sort of build this kind of data warehouse. But building a data warehouse also involves like the infrastructure team or architect and data engineers as well. Right? But in general, I think analytics engineer is relatively new title. It could be like data warehouse engineer or some other titles in the past, but they are folks who work with the so-called like modern data stack, right? That involves things like dbt, Snowflake, or BigQuery, and then you know how to work with cloud in general, and very familiar with SQL and data modeling, and then you can become a analytics engineer. There are also big data engineers and developers, right? Or big data developer. So these will be more hardcore. So you need to sort of be familiar with big data, tools such as Apache Spark, right? Data Lake, streaming, and on the streaming side, sometimes, these are people who build like a lake house. So you're building streaming solutions or streaming data. So yeah, so there are different types of data engineers. If you are a career switcher, I think it's relatively easier for you to become an analytics engineer. And if you come from a software engineer background or dev background or data science background, I think it's easier for you to become a big data engineer or lakehouse engineer. And there are also machine learning engineering, which is getting popular. So in MLE, there are different types of machine learning engineers. There are MLEs that just focus on the software or the modeling side. So these are like the model engineers. This is similar to data scientist. So you focus on building the best model. And so you need to be very good at deep learning some of these AI models or the traditional methods. So you're more specialized in model engineering. But there are also software engineers who's wearing the AI hat, right, or data scientist hat, who can actually deploy models, right? Those are mainly focusing on deployment. Whenever you deploy something in production, that requires software development skills. You need to be able to build model APIs, right? Building model serving solutions. It touches on infrastructure, automation as well, scaling, okay? Working with maybe NoSQL databases or feature stores. So this definitely requires more software engineering skills. But there's also the MLOps engineer, which is somewhere in between the DevOps and data scientist. So you not only know how to sort of build machine learning models, but you also need to know sort of operationalize these models in production, which means you need to get the data pipelines ready. So some data engineers actually work as machine learning engineers as well. You need to know how to build infrastructure. Let's say building Kubernetes clusters, or at least like working with Kubernetes clusters, right? Containerize your models, right? Orchestrate those containers, automation, and also once the model is deployed in production, you need to be able to monitor the performance of the model, the drift, and monitoring in general, and building some sort of dashboard, but not using Tableau though, just using some sort of monitoring systems. So that's MLOps engineer, which is also becoming very popular. So yeah, these are some of the options you have. And depending on where you come from, I think if you come from a business background, I think getting started with data science and BI data analytics will be relatively easier. If you really like coding and you commit a lot of time learning coding, improving your programming skills, and you like learning a lot of different things, even if you don't come from software background, I think you still have the potential to become a data engineer. And then for data engineering, consider 3 different paths. Most people start from analytics engineering. SQL is super important. Right? The rest of them are just tools. Big data engineer is more like software developer. That's why in companies like Twitter, some other companies, they may not have a data engineer title. Everyone's just like software engineer or developer, but they build a lot of data pipelines, and they work with Spark, right, as well. And then for machine learning engineering, I think right now there's also let's group this with AI. So if you would like to get specialized in machine learning engineering or AI, as a model engineer, I think you can sort of get more specialized in large language models or in generative AI. That is going to be a very popular trend, but it depends on data science skills. So you sort of need to know machine learning, data science first, and then you can sort of transition to generative AI. So you can't really skip the data science part if you want to work in AI. Cool. And then next, obviously you need to make a decision, like, whether this is the right path for you. So it depends on a couple of things, I think. Do you like coding? If you absolutely hate coding, maybe just try SQL. And if you can still, like, if you still enjoy writing SQL queries, maybe data analytics is the right path for you, because I think working as a data scientist and data engineer, you still write a lot of code. And to what extent do you enjoy business communication? If you really enjoy the people side of things, I think working as a data analyst, data scientist, or project managers and product managers um, who knows data science and data analytics, those will be good opportunities. You don't really have to be the technical person on the team, because usually when you assemble an AI or data science team or product team that builds data products, you can work as a product manager, but you absolutely need to know how to communicate with data teams, right? And also software teams as well. But if you like business communication, I think you'll do very well as a data scientist as well. And you can work in different industries instead of becoming, because not everyone wants to become like, go down the typical path, right? To get promoted to become a manager, director, VP. If you can't get to that level, or maybe you don't really enjoy doing that, then just consider working in different industries as a data scientist. And as soon as you accumulate enough industry experiences, you might want to start your own consulting or freelancing business. So I think there are a ton of opportunities out there. And yeah, I think working in data science, and sometimes you have to sort of learn how to deal with uncertainty. Not every project you work on will be successful, because sometimes it's just don't have the right data. And sometimes if you have the right data, but the model is not really performing as expected, or sometimes you can build a very accurate model, but it's very hard to sort of gain the trust from the business side, or there might be some compliance issues and you cannot use the model and you get demotivated or you get disappointed. It's very normal. And a lot of data science projects actually fail in practice. So, and sometimes when we work on projects that didn't work out, and can sort of tell that the students working on these real projects are disappointed, but I think it's a good learning process. And just so you know that not everything, all projects is going to be successful. Working in the data industry, you also need to be ready to sort of always learn new things. And I think I personally came from a SAS background. Like SAS is a programming language, and it's more like a statistical programming language. I've done SAS programming for years before I switched to Python. I've seen people doing SAS for so many years, but now I think it's time for all SAS programmers to sort of adapt to Python and some of the new tech stack, because we do corporate training as well. One of the biggest demand is actually just training or converting the SAS users to learn Python, machine learning. So you definitely will need to keep learning new things, and work-life balance. But I think in general, working in data, you do get a good work-life balance. But as soon as you start to work for like startups or starting your own business, I think that's very different. So you just need to be prepared for that. Will the job be replaced by AI? I think to some extent, any kind of jobs can be automated by AI now. Like, lawyers, call center, representatives, even the front desk, right? Services, folks in the banks, everything can be automated. ChatGPT can write code. There are, GPT interpreters out there. But it doesn't mean, like, actually we see software engineering jobs increasing because there are more companies who want to build AI applications. So there's just like new demand. In the past, your dev team manager may think that, well, we need 10 people to complete this big projects, right? And now, because of the AI technology, the developers might become more efficient. So you just need 5 people to do that. Theoretically, in practice, it may not be the case actually. But let's say theoretically, you just need half the staff to do that. But then companies realize that because we're all becoming more efficient, right? There are a lot of ideas or products they would like to build or implement in the past, and due to budget issues, we can only afford 10 developers. There's only one project or one product we can complete. But now, because everyone's becoming more efficient, finally people say, okay, let's build this product, another product. They want 5, 10 new products to be built. And there will be And because everybody is adapting to AI, and that creates like new demand and needs. For example, right now, a lot of demand for chatbot, a lot of demand for prompt engineering, because people are all sort of adapting to these. Right? So that creates new jobs. So I think we all need to, sort of adapt. And as a data scientist or data analyst, we just need to make sure that we learn how to work with AI tools. I think we'll be fine. But if you stop learning, then yes, you're at risk of being replaced for sure. Okay. Okay. So how do we get started? What's the real cost here, right? So I think there are some options if you want to start with like learning the hard skills, technical skills. There are online courses, boot camps, university programs out there. The online courses might be cheap, but the cost is not just the money, right? There's time cost as well. So how determined are you in terms of the switch? Is your deadline or is your goal to switch successfully in 9 months, in 18 months, or in 5 years? Right. So a lot of people find online learning may not get you anywhere. You're learning a bunch of things, but the job switch is just not happening. And in that case, they may consider a boot camp or university programs. But I think boot camps are usually shorter and faster, but it doesn't mean it's the best option for you. So obviously you have to do the research and find what's the best option, because there are a lot of data scientists are self-made. They take online courses. The best resources are online nowadays. But you need to be sort of very self-disciplined, and you have to commit like a lot of time to self-learn. So just find the best option for yourself. But also be aware of the time cost, time commitment as well. You need to be dealing with stress if you're joining a boot camp, because you're sort of learning new things every single day. If you stop attending the boot camp for 2 days, you may find yourself just falling behind, and it's hard for you to catch up. So there's a little bit of stress, when you join boot camp. But also that's why you get pushed, right, to learn so many new things in a short amount of time. But it definitely takes, the perseverance and dedication. So having, I guess, classmates will be very useful. Having a mentor, I think these are what boot camps can offer. But university courses, of course, it gives the best credential. You get a master's, right? It might take you longer, but I think you'll learn more theory, which will also be very important. And don't forget that job search is the second stage of the journey. A lot of people spend 6 to 12 months to learn all the new skills, but then they realize that after they start applying for jobs, they couldn't get any interviews, and they just give up. And then they didn't realize that job search is a skill set you need to develop as well. How do you write the best resumes that can get you interviews? And once you get interviews, you have to do technical tests, take home assignments. How do you pass those interviews, right? So it's an important skill to have. I think having a mentor who can do mock interviews with you will be very useful, or just go with your friends who's more experienced. I'm sure you have friends who work in the data industry, and buy them lunch, and see if they can help you with mock interviews. Okay. And then there are also, the resume building and the interviews. So this is, as I said, the second stage. We've had multiple resume workshops or resume related sessions in the last 3 months. So I would definitely recommend you to check out our YouTube channels. I think we usually upload meetup recordings to YouTube. So you can go to youtube.com at WeCloudData, and you should be able to find the recordings if you need more details. But at a high level, I think you need to have the project experience. This is the most important experience. If you don't have portfolio, my recommendation is just give up. There's no chance of getting a job if you don't have project experience. Right? It doesn't have to be real paid project experience, but as I said, freelance opportunities or projects you've done in hackathons or in school projects can be useful as well, but you need to be able to show experience. I think hiring managers sometimes think about the hiring cost, right? It's like a bad hire is way more expensive, costly, right? Than the the 10 grand or 20 grand they save on someone who's more junior. So that's why companies want to even sometimes hire more senior people, because they know that with 10 grand or 20 grand more, they are lowering the risks. I think that's the primary reason. So how do you prove to people that you actually have the experience and have the right skill set, the right attitude, right? Project is really important. Okay. And then need to know how to market yourself. Okay? Building the right LinkedIn profile, having a decent blog post. I think even formatting matters. You want to make sure it looks nice so people enjoy reading a blog post. So yeah, so these are some of the things, but I think the number one priority should be, after you've gained technical skills, the number one priority should be building project experience, and just try your best to do that. And I'm pretty sure you will be able to get a job in this field. And when it comes to interviews, I think there are two important questions. There are many different, like you can get like 200 interview questions, right? But the two most important questions you need to be able to sort of nail in any sort of interviews is like, who are you and why should we hire you? And then you can come up with a long list of questions related to who are you, right? So I think as you start to build or sort of embark on your data science learning journey or data engineering journey, from day one, you need to start preparing for this question. Like, for example, well, who are you? Like, maybe I come from business background. You've never done coding. So how do you answer this question then? After 3 months, you graduate from a boot camp. Why would we hire you? Because it looks like you only learned data science for 3 months, right? So many people fear that they actually don't have any advantage, right, in interviews compared to someone who has had 1 or 2 years of experiences. But as I said, I think employers sometimes think about the hiring risks. Okay? For someone who has a really good attitude, okay, and who has good aptitude to learn and improve, can impress people as well. So maybe your disadvantage is that you're a career switcher and you don't have years of experiences and you just learned data science. But maybe you can communicate in this way. You can tell them that, well, 3 months ago, I don't even know coding, but I've done my research. I sort of want to do data science and I give it a try. And then I really start to like it. And then I dedicate more time. So always compare, yourself, right, as of today to 3 months ago, then, you sort of are convincing people that you can achieve so much, right, in 3 months. Like after 3 months, you're now able to build machine learning models and you're able to build portfolio projects, build something end to end. That's actually very impressive, right? But then of course the follow-up question is, okay, now I know who you are. You're a career switcher. You said that you're really good at learning new things. Do you have proof? It comes back to the projects, right? And tell them, okay, these are the projects I built. Then is it very entry-level project, or is it a data set you download from Kaggle and you did that and it feels like it's just like an exercise, right? Or is this actually a very impressive project? So it carries a lot of weight, okay, in this decision-making process. So you really need to impress people with the project, right? If you don't come from a tech background, but if you're able to build a very impressive portfolio project compared to someone who has already, it's that, if you're playing at the same level as someone who has 3 years of experience and your portfolio projects look the same quality, I would consider giving you an opportunity, because how can you learn so fast, right? And that shows a lot of good traits. Like you might be very dedicated, laser focused, right? Goal oriented. So you name it. And why should we hire you is the second question you need to nail, right? And it's usually about putting yourself in the shoes of the hiring manager. So you need to be able to read cues. For example, hiring companies or hiring managers usually will tell you why they have this opening, or you can even ask, right? Why do you have this opening? Or you can ask HR in the first round. And then you need to know that, is this someone who's starting a new team? right? Or is this a very established team where they're just considered to add a new position because someone left, or they get a new project where they need someone, right? Or maybe it's a startup, right, that are just getting started with their data journey. So I think their requirements, the type of talents they're looking for is very different. So in that case, I think the way you answer these questions need to be different. Um, so just pay attention to those, and you absolutely need to do your research, try to know more about the hiring director or hiring managers you will be talking to, and also the companies, and answer these questions accordingly. Okay. I don't think we have time to go through all of these in detail today, but maybe you can watch some of the past recordings. Cool. I think we are at the end of this session. I see some questions asked on Zoom, so I'll get back to those questions, and hopefully I can answer as many questions as possible. At the meantime, feel free to ask more questions. So, question from Lisa. What does it take to switch from a statistician to a data engineer? What are the transferable, non-transferable skills? What does a data engineer portfolio look like? First of all, I would like to ask why would you consider switching to data engineering? Because if you have a stats background, uh, it probably makes more sense to switch to data science. But if you've done your research, you think data engineering is more exciting, by all means. But I think you might have a better chance of switching to data science. Or maybe you have tried and the market is too competitive, and then that's why you're considering switching to data engineering. So if that's the case, I think the transferable skills, of course, there's always the generic skill set such as communications and stuff, but switching from statistician to data engineering, I think one of the key skills is just the ability to deal with data. If you work as a statistician, I don't know how often you work with SQL, but if you are familiar with SQL, then good news. SQL is very important for data engineering. Even if you're working with Spark, most likely you're writing Spark SQL. So being able to interact with databases or tables using like the query language is very important. So that's definitely a transferable skill. And just in general, understanding math and statistics is very useful for any type of data jobs. So I think highlighting the fact that you come from a stats background can also be useful. But I think what kind of skill set you need to add to a portfolio or to the resume is actually probably a more important question here. What's missing here, right? I think if you're coming from like stats background and you want to switch to data engineering, there's some skill sets you need to add. So there's skill sets like just working with cloud and infrastructure in general. It doesn't mean that you need to sort of become a platform engineer or DevOps, but at least like know how to work with, one of these cloud platforms, right? AWS, Azure, know how to launch like instances, work with like big data storage, and all of these will be useful because that's what data engineers like work with on a daily basis. Also work with databases, relational database management systems, right? So which means you're using SQL to interact with these tables. Also data warehouse it's one type of database, right? But it's more like an architecture and the approach to data problems. So understanding data warehouse will be useful, and automation, how do you automate data pipelines, and of course, data ingestion and integration. So these are some of the key things you need to learn. There's quite a bit new skill set you need to gain. Data ingestion means where do data come from? A typical startup will be dealing with, at the very minimum, like 15 to 20 different data sources. There are data coming from CRM, marketing, finance, accounting, right? There's some like, tools like, Slack. So there's social media. Do you know how to ingest these data into the database or the data lake first before you can get started with data mining, right? So, and also the ability to work with big data. It might look a bit overwhelming, but once you have this kind of skill set, I think you'll be able to do all kinds of jobs. Like you'll be able to come back and become a better data scientist, and can work in data engineering, and even work in machine learning engineering requires some of these, skill sets. So it's overlapping quite a bit with data engineering. I hope this is helpful. What does a data engineering portfolio look like? It's definitely something end to end, which involves data ingestion, like collecting your own data and ingest them into either a database or a data lake, right, in the cloud. You need to have cloud infrastructure, doing everything on AWS. Don't do that on your local computer. Then people think it's not that serious, right? Um, and then definitely need to have a database component, to sort of prove that you know how to work with data modeling. Because once you have all kinds of data sources and you have a database, then you always need to decide how you're going to store these data in the databases. So that involves some sort of data modeling effort, and that can generally be very useful. And then, of course, you need to extract the data and do data cleaning and some sort of data manipulation. Try to think of a good use case. Like, why would you even build this data engineering pipeline? Is it for BI or is it for data science? It's probably easier to get started with BI, which means after you've automate the process of scraping all of these data, ingest that into the lake, built databases and data warehouse, ultimately you want to visualize them, right, and discover some insight. So I think it would be super helpful if a data engineer sort of know how to do visualization. You don't have to be an expert, but just so that people understand that you built something end to end and it's useful, right? Many people will miss that part. So I think adding some sort of BI will be very useful. That'll be my recommendation. Next question. My background is in architecture. I'm looking to switch to data and BI. I have some experience with Tableau, SQL, looking for projects to work on. Would you be able to suggest some industries that's related to the field I'm in that could leverage my current background when looking for an entry role? I'm not very specialized in architecture. But I'm sure you can. One of my suggestion is just to read white paper and see if they're the big four, like the tech consulting companies, have they published any white paper in your industry? Architecture, um, and see if there are any good use cases that you can find, and then do some research on the data sources, see if you can find data sets related to that industry, and then build some dashboard and do some data analytics. I think that'll be useful. But if you can't find something that's very specialized, maybe try to get some data from that's related to architecture, and even social media data related to architecture. See if you can collect all the tweets, people tweeting about architecture or some sort of events, and see if you can build something interesting there. Because the data skills such as SQL and Tableau, they're very transferable. You don't really have to work on architecture related projects, because people know that if you're dealing with structured data, if you've done similar things in healthcare or in the banking industry, it shouldn't be hard for you to transfer that to other industries. So yeah, hope that's helpful. As a beginner in data analytics, I can only have EDA projects in my portfolio so far. Would that be enough to break into an industry, or is that made redundant by AI? It's never redundant, at least at this point. You need to understand that ChatGPT can help you write some code. You prompt, ChatGPT and say, this is the table I'm dealing with. I have 10 columns. Can you write some code for me to merge this data set with another table, or calculate the minimum, average, whatever, or even write some code to build a machine learning model? But you have to understand that it's able to do this because it has scraped Stack Overflow and some of those websites, and it has a ton of data. It have seen a lot of these examples, right? And that's why it's able to do this kind of completion to write some code for you. But it doesn't mean that it has the ability to actually sort of look into the actual data set, It's suggesting the code. And it maybe in the future it can even run the code, but it doesn't mean it understand the code. So you will still need to be the person who's sort of look into it and do the actual analysis. Right. So I think this is what ChatGPT is able to do as of now, but maybe in the future it will become even smarter. But I think at this point, it's not going to be made redundant by AI. As I said, you can be very good with like Tableau, but it doesn't mean you know how to build good, storytelling. You can do good storytelling. I've seen a lot of dashboards where people just try many different types of, charts, right? And they make it look very fancy, but it's actually not the right way to do visualization. It's all about sort of making it easy for people to consume the information. So sometimes, even if like I've seen some data visualization best practices, and most of the time people recommend a line plot or bar chart, right? You don't always need like fancy plots. So there are some visualizations out there. It's interactive, it's stunning, but it doesn't really help that much in a regular business, day-to-day operations. So yeah, so you still need people to be able to do, and also like in deep dive analysis, right? Sometimes the executives or business team have some questions, and they just need to roll up their sleeves and write a lot of SQL queries to help them to find problems, right? To answer their questions. I don't think that's something like you will be more frustrated if you only rely on ChatGPT. Like if you know how to write SQL, or if ChatGPT can tell you the code and run it, it's not successful, and you know how to debug that. If you have that skills, sometimes just writing your own SQL queries is way more efficient, right? So it's very useful for beginners, I guess. But if you're more advanced, like you're probably gonna skip that. So I think ChatGPT can be made like very useful for business users to finally be able to sort of have this chat interface, and they can ask questions, and ChatGPT can run some code for them, so they're more self-served. But it doesn't mean that this can actually replace a data analyst. I don't think it's going to happen that soon. Does large language model fall under data or software engineering? It depends on how we use it, right? If the goal is to leverage an existing API, such as, the Llama 2 model open source by Facebook, or just ChatGPT or the OpenAI API, then most likely you're doing software engineering because you're building some sort of product. Maybe it's a text summarizer. Maybe it's a chat bot. So it has some sort of interface. It has a UI, right? You need to do the UX design as well. So it's more about writing code to make this happen. And it abstracts away the AI, the actual mathematical part. Okay. So if that's the case, it's software engineering, right? Or it could even be data engineering sometimes. But if the goal here is to use an existing free large language model, which is not trained on your own company's data, and now you would like to fine tune that model so it perform even better on the specific tasks your company want you to achieve, that's fine tuning. Then you absolutely need to know AI. You need to know how this works, right? You need to be very good with data manipulation, writing Python code, training machine learning models. If you don't know machine learning, there's no way you can fine tune a good data science or large language model. There are ways to do that, but people just don't have the confidence to use a model built by someone who's not an expert, right? So it could be AI or could be software engineering, depending on how you use these models. Would you say there are more supply in data science, data analytics than demand? More supply than demand? That's a good question. So there are definitely a lot of supply right now. Partially it's because I think last year a lot of tech companies cutting jobs. So it takes a little bit of time to absorb all of these talents. As far as I know, the friends I have, some of them got let go. Most of them got jobs. It took some of them a while because they're picky. or finally they got some time off. They just went on vacation, go to Europe for 2 months and then come back and focus on job search. So that process of a couple of months, and that's why I think early this year it was really bad job market. It's super competitive. It's hard to stand out. There are a lot of senior talents out there as well. Um, I think since like May and April, the job market become a lot better. And I know the big tech companies start to hire again. Because it's interesting that a lot of companies just like they have the need or demand to hire people, but because of the risks, they're sort of putting their hiring effort on hold. And now when hiring partners come to us, come like it's interesting that in the past it could be like, okay, I'm hiring one data scientist, but some companies like they say, okay, I need to hire 4 data scientists. There's one company that we work with, they're US based. They have like 5 headcounts. They're hiring machine learning engineers, and they have 5 headcounts. So it looks like the demand is definitely increasing. But to answer your question, yeah, I wouldn't say it's like very saturated, but it's indeed very competitive. I think a lot of people want to get into data science. They found it kind of challenging and hard, and that's why they sort of go down the path of data analytics or data engineering. But I think if you would like to work in the data industry, if you keep learning new things, you will eventually be able to get a decent job. But building project experience is very important. And also, when we post data, let's say consultant jobs, sometimes companies will tell you that, okay, they have like 800 applicants. We had the similar, situation. We're hiring like teaching assistant in this case. So obviously we're not going to get like 800 applicants, but we got more than 200 applicants just for a teaching assistant position. It might sound like very scary, right? It's very competitive, but as far as I know, I've gone through pretty much all of these resumes because I did the screening. Um, Almost half of them are not relevant at all, right? They just don't have the skill set. Maybe they've been like a mathematics teacher, but they don't even have any Python skills. So like half of them are just not relevant, right? And a lot of people who are just not experienced enough or not specialized enough, or some people are just really bad at writing resumes. So found like in the end, there are actually not that many good talents or qualified talents out there. And that's why one of the it actually, again, I'm coming back to the same topic here. I was talking to a hiring director this morning. Actually, she posted the jobs. Like I submitted like 8, 9 resumes to her like a month ago, but today she's coming back to me again. Looks like she hasn't filled that role. So a month, 2 months later, they're still hiring. Maybe she has really high hiring standard. But yeah, again, the best talent, companies might not be able to afford them. The good talent, they might not actually be actively looking for jobs. So a lot of people applying for the same job, they are not even relevant. And many of them don't know how to write good resumes. So if you look at this funnel, who can make it to the interviews? There are actually very few of them. So you just need to be the person who can sort of do all the right things so that you can stand out, right? You don't need to be the most experienced or highly skilled person, to be honest, because sometimes company will think that you're not going to stay very long on that job. So that's why people say, okay, I'm always looking for the right fit. What is the right fit? It's someone who can potentially stay longer, who can do the work, right? Who's also not asking crazy salary, right? So the company can afford you, and you're also looking for jobs at that moment. And then you have to click with the hiring manager because sometimes you don't get picked because maybe for some reason they just don't like you, right? So yeah, if you consider that, I think you'll definitely have a lot. There are definitely a lot of opportunities still out there. So I would definitely stay positive. From Jeremy, I'm currently looking to make a transition from senior operations excellence management with supply chain management experience to business intelligence with some basic knowledge of data science and analytics. Where does Oh, sorry. I guess it's not a question. But if you have experience in supply chain, I highly recommend you um, look into sort of some of the data science use cases in supply chain. There's huge demand in supply chain, like demand for data scientists or data science solutions at least. Because if I look into all the projects we have implemented in the past on our consulting side, um, actually many of them are from the supply chain industries. There are a lot of time series forecasting, demand forecasting, back order prediction type of analysis there. So yeah, it's in strong demand for sure. And if you know how to do BI, and also know how to do time series analysis, I think you'll find some good opportunity, and that sort of marries with your existing skill set and experience as well. Where does a data architect role fit with others mentioned, like BI data engineering? I think data architect is a more senior type of data engineer, um, it- because I think a data architecture like also need to have very good communication and business skills, because when we start a new project, usually data architect will need to be involved, or it could be a data engineer who's good at data architecture, architecting, because we always need to know, like when we're starting a new, let's say, proof of concept project, and the company want to build a data warehouse, or they want to build some sort of AI solutions. Um, Other than the business requirements and pain points, the first question after that is usually data. Do we have the right data? Do we have enough data? Right? Do we have the data infrastructure to support this project? Right? And then when it comes to the data sources, then data architect need to know sort of different types of data sources, right? And you need to know how to store those data. Whether it's some type of data need to be stored in real time in NoSQL databases, and some data can be just loaded into a data lake, and most of the data probably come from APIs and relational databases. And how do we choose what cloud platform do we go with, right? What kind of database services do we work with? At a very high level, I think this is what data architect need to do. You're making a lot of decisions for the company, right? That involves a lot of research as well, and you might be working with data engineers to do a lot of proof of concepts at a smaller scale to try things out. For example, what is the best data orchestration platform to work with, right? Or automation tool? Do we work with Prefect, Daxter, or do we use Apache Airflow? I think data architect is calling the decisions, or at least providing very important suggestions on the decision making. And they obviously absolutely need to know how to communicate with the business as well, and also know how to set the right expectation with executives. So I guess a natural career path for progression for data engineers would be data architect. So if you have seen enough data engineering problems, and you also have infrastructure experience, then maybe you can work as a data architect, or you can come from software background and become a data architect. That's possible too. But definitely, if some companies looking for a data architect, you need to at least have 5 years of experience. Would you recommend that you create a different type of dashboard for different companies that you're applying to, healthcare, retail? It's probably not necessary. I think you just need 2 to 3 dashboard that really stand out. Um, and Yeah, because it's a lot of work if you are going to do that for different industries. But maybe when you design your portfolio projects, right? When you're doing the brainstorming, maybe you can already select different industries, and maybe you want to work on, uh, one project for healthcare, one project for retail, and then you go find the data set. I think that would probably make sense. Yeah. I would definitely try things in different industries, because that sort of diversifies your experience. Unless you want to get really specialized, you only want to work in fintech, and then everything you've done is related to credit risks, fraud, right? Compliance, yeah, and custom analytics. Um, that could work too if you get really specialized in that industry. But if you would like to cast a wider net, then pick data sets, data problems from different industries will definitely be helpful. And you can learn more along the way as well. As far as boot camps go, do you have any particular that you recommend? How would you recommend getting the project experience or real experience without working as a data science engineer? Um, yeah, so WeCloudData offer boot camps. I think it's time for me to sort of introduce our courses. But you can go to WeCloudData.com to find our course or curriculum information. But if there's one thing that differentiates WeCloudData from other boot camps is that we actually offer real project experience. As I said, we have a consulting company. So many students work with our project managers or our full-time consultants on these industry projects. And there are different levels. So some students will be working with smaller startups. You're not getting paid, but that experience is really what you need. And the clients are like the smaller clients will be willing to sort of give you LinkedIn recommendations. And then you sort of work more closely with the founders or the directors in those companies. But we also have larger projects where students sort of contribute to a piece of the project. But you're getting the guidance and you're just like working in a real team. And that allows you to add real industry experience quickly. And most of the student got jobs in the tough times, mainly because of the project experience they get. That will definitely different, like make you different in the standout in the job market. Yeah. Um, oh, please share a link or example of particular reading paper and converting it to code. Yeah, so um I don't get the question. Reading a paper and cover. I think I mentioned someone I interviewed who actually know how to read paper, and so I would recommend if you are interested in large language models, you can look for things like annotated uh, transformer. There's like a blog post about that. But basically, people going through like annotate a Python script that has the transformer code, like the detailed implementation of transformers and explains everything. I found that very useful to help you understand the theory behind things. But in general, if you just want to start with large language model, the first paper you should read is probably something like Attention is All You Need. You just start from transformers and then move on to large language modeling. And you need to understand there are different types of large language models, right? Um, there will be BERT. They're like encoder decoder style. GPT is decoder only models, and there are encoder only models like BERT, but there's also like T5 and then other types of encoder decoder models. There's quite a bit of theory there. Um, but to be able to fine tune large language models doesn't really require that much knowledge in terms of the like the theory, but it just like it's very pragmatic, I guess. You need to know how to deal with data and clean data and how to know how to construct the right data set for fine-tuning models. And the fine-tuning scripts is usually provided by those companies that open source the large language models. So it's actually not that hard. But again, it comes back to the quality of the data, and that's very important. And also, you need to be familiar with GPU, and those kind of infrastructure. But yeah, there are more efficient ways to do that. But you need to spend quite a bit time on just learning all of these, I think. Um, another example I can, or if you're looking for resource, then just look into Nano GPT. It's um, and I think there's something called GPT Lit as well. But these are just smaller scale implementation of a GPT algorithm in Python. And it's all based on GPT transformer paper. So you can look into that. This one is written by Andre Karpathy, who worked for I think he's working for OpenAI right now. So it's a pet project for him, but it get pretty popular on YouTube. There's a question or maybe comment. I'm a career switcher you're talking about. I worked in digital marketing in a previous life. Went back to get MBA with a specialization in business analytics. Now work in DA as a manager at a consulting firm. That's great. I have technical skills to develop dashboard myself, but lean on data engineers and data science teams to build advanced models. So you don't need to learn and do it all yourself. Communication skills, as you say, is critical. 100%. I totally agree with you. Um, Looking to grow into advanced analytics roles. Yeah, it's very hot right now, so staying relevant with the trends is important. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, since you're a hiring manager, maybe you can share your contact information so you guys can stay connected as well. But thanks for joining the session. Another question from Colin: how do you protect clients' data if you use ChatGPT? That's a really good question. So, there's a big topic in generative AI, which is related to responsible AI, right? So it is hard. I think companies like uh, OpenAI, I think they've been working on this type of initiatives. I think recently OpenAI also sort of released the ChatGPT enterprise version. So compliance is definitely a very important topic. And yeah, I think some of these CEOs actually had a meeting with the Congress and trying to sort of propose some ideas and stuff like that. But there's a long way to go. One of the concerns is, for example, one of my friends is working as a director of data team at a bank, and they are actually building internal tools. But one of the challenges, for example, if you fine tune ChatGPT on the HR data set and you say, okay, let's give ChatGPT access to all the HR data set, it's very hard to control how people are going to do the prompting, right? Because you cannot say that, because in the past, like IT can tell you that, well, you're only able to access this table in this database, right? You can do fine-grained control. Who can access what information? But now if you feed everything to ChatGPT, and because the algorithm is more like a black box, it's very hard to control what ChatGPT is going to spit out, right? People might be able to prompt, right? Things like, tell me who's the most highly paid employee on my team, right? How do you control that ChatGPT is not going to share that information if that's what you feed into the learning algorithm? So there are a lot that depends. So that means what data you feed into ChatGPT is very important. So yeah, I think it's a big research topic right now. It's very hot. If you can, I've seen some startup popping up in this field as well, and that's why a lot of companies are not using it yet. But a lot of companies are building POCs. They definitely want to explore the capability, or just use some ChatGPT like tools or open source models in on data that's not that sensitive. What is a good way to display my project? I'm currently working on Power BI projects, sending the files, screenshot, or write an article on Medium. I think storytelling, right? Storytelling is not just about uh, building a dashboard. Right? You need to help people, unless your dashboard is like super good and people can understand exactly the story you're trying to tell. But you can use annotation if you're doing a presentation, right? And it can take screenshot and stuff like that. But if you want to showcase your project, I think the best way is to write an article on Medium. But I know it takes more effort. But usually I see people finding success doing that. And they have to keep doing that. You can't just have one article. If you decide to do that, maybe have 5, 6 articles over the couple of months doing the job search period, or maybe just continue doing that. I think that would be impressive. It's a good way to summarize what you've done and let people see that you actually have great storytelling and communication skills. And it helps you prepare for interviews as well. So I would highly recommend writing articles on Medium. And then And I mean, Power BI allows you to publish the dashboard as well. So combining that with the Medium blog post, it'll be very helpful. What are some tips you have for networking in the data field once out of college? Yeah, this is a common question. I think there are a couple of different ways to do networking. But just keep in mind that whenever you do networking, people need to have enough incentive to sort of respond to your request, or they need to have enough interest to network with you, right? And it's reciprocal. So for some people in a senior leadership position, maybe mentoring people is just something that they feel like it's rewarding for them. They're not necessarily looking for a monetary return, right? But they don't always have hiring positions like openings, right? Uh, See if you can find a mentor like that. But why would they? Like a lot of people are like, if you find someone interesting and he works as a director in data science, you're not the only one reaching out to him or her. Right? There might be like 50 people who want to network with him, and 30 of them want him to become a mentor. So again, like even networking requires you to sort of have um, some sort of portfolio, right? Again, coming back to this, like you need to make it interesting. And some people sometimes, connect with me and say, I just need some advice, or I, can you help me find a job? And obviously, I'm just going to ignore that because I cannot help you find a job. I don't even know you, and I'm busy. So I just don't have the time to respond. So if you get rejected or no response, don't feel bad, because that person you would like to network with or talk to, it really indeed might be very busy, right? You only care about those people who respond to you, and you start building a connection. So I think you need to cast a wider net, and it's a lot of effort. And if you're knocking on someone's door, right? Usually when you go visit your friend, you bring a bottle of wine, right? Why would someone accept your connection request? I think asking for feedback on your portfolio project might be interesting. Maybe give it a try. I don't know if it's going to work out for everyone, but first of all, you need to have an interesting project, right? If you're networking with connecting with a data scientist, maybe ask for their feedback on your project. It might be interested in having a look, to be honest, because every time when people send me a link, I actually want to click on that link. But if they just send me a bunch of text, I probably will just skip that, right? Um, so hopefully this works. I don't know. I've been telling a lot of people. I don't know if they have tried. Um, but again, you need to have something interesting to show people, so they feel, interested enough to work with you. So that's with like mentors or data scientists. But if you work with recruiters, I think you absolutely need to have a decent LinkedIn profile, because absolutely they're going to check out your LinkedIn profile. You need to have either blog post or GitHub, right? Portfolio, to be ready to share with them. And some of them will definitely look into that. But again, recruiters are usually very busy. They connect with a lot of people. They even do that proactively, right? So they're busy people. If they don't respond, that's fine. Maybe some of those are executive recruiters, which means they only focus on people who are senior. And yeah, so in that case, like just keep trying. And yeah, and I'm sure like someone will respond. And then that's a good starting point. I think when I started my career many years ago, I got introduced to a recruiter, but I was trying to network with someone else, like an alumni, and he doesn't have openings. And he said, maybe you should talk to this recruiter. So I reached out to this recruiter and then had a chat, and they don't have opening for me. So this recruiter never helped me get a job. I got a job myself, but then I sort of built this relationship with them, and it lasted for 10 years. And then now, instead of helping me find a job, I'm like referring a lot of students to them. And I have that credibility because I worked with them for a while. So they usually like to work with the students that we have. But of course, most of the time, they're still more interested in senior talents, right? But there are recruiters out there who deal with junior talents as well. You just need to find the right one. But just so you know that they're in the business of connecting with people, right? Because I think it's not polite for a recruiter to reject you because you are looking for a job. You need their help today, but maybe five years down the road, they need your help because you become a director of data science at some companies. So usually they will not say no. They'll just tell you, not the right time or they don't have openings. Keep trying. Like if they they don't have openings, stay in touch with them every once in a while, like 3 months. And I'm pretty sure you're making progress, improvements. So it is a lot of work though, but just keep trying. I think it will work out. If you're a certified AWS solution architect, I highly recommend you talk. I'm not sure if you have like industry experience, but talk to companies like Jefferson Frank. They're like specialized in hiring AWS talent, and all they do is placing AWS talents. I'm not sure if you're based in the US or Canada, but they're like New York based. And recently they expanded to Canada. I just talked to them last week, and they're interested in people who have 3+ years of AWS experience. Having certification, I actually asked them this kind of questions, right? Because I know our students will be interested as well. I said, like, does certification matter? And obviously, her answer is that experience is way more important. But if you have relevant work experience in the IT industry, and then you have AWS certification, they will be interested as well. So that's when certification will be helpful. It's always adding value, but how much value also depends on your background, I think. Uh, which roles within data analytics, data science do you most often see digital marketing professionals pivot to? We do have some students coming from like digital marketing, Google Ads, SEO, like background. I would say they found jobs in different places. Like they're students that I know who work in fintech, and then they work on customer analytics. But yeah, if you come from digital marketing, my recommendation would be, let's say you're familiar with SEO, you're familiar with, let's say, Google Ads, right? And then you may have experience working with Google Analytics, but you're relying on the Google Ads console, the Google Analytics console to get those reports, right? I've worked with companies that want to ingest those data into their data warehouse or databases, and they would like to sort of cross-reference that with their own customer data and the CRM data. And if you can, I'm not sure, like if you get opportunities, it will be great if you can build dashboard and do analytics that combines those data with like customer data, some sort of growth analytics type of dashboard. It will be very helpful. I would recommend you working growth analytics because it's all about finding opportunities to help the company either acquire more customers or reducing cost. But the goal is to help the company grow. So you can, in the past, you might be doing SEO optimization or doing Google Ads, right? But if the company is doing this at large scale, can you build machine learning models to help them optimize the budget, how they allocate their money, among different channels? That's one typical optimization problem people do in this space. Or switch to custom analytics and custom acquisition, or just lead generation type of like modeling, because people actually do use machine learning to do that, to automate that. And I think your knowledge in this space can transfer very well into that. And so many companies are facing custom acquisition challenges. Even WeCloudData always have this kind of demand to improve customer acquisition. And we do event marketing, for example, events like tonight. But we also do Google Ads. We do, so there are a lot of different ways. But internally, we're building data warehouses as well. So we use HubSpot for sales, CRM. We collect Google Ads and Google Analytics data. So if you get to work on those like raw data, I think there are a lot of employment opportunities in there. Cool. I think we're at the end of this session. I'm glad I answered all of the questions. If I missed anything, let me know. But yeah, I'm very glad that I get this opportunity to present this to everyone today. I hope you find this session useful. I think we have some other sessions in the future. I think tomorrow we have like a machine learning engineering event. Our program manager Gehad will be introducing the machine learning engineering bootcamp. Next week we will have data engineering event. So stay in touch. Yeah, I hope everyone all the best. And if you ever want to work on real client projects or join a bootcamp, I think now you know who to talk to. So you can go to WeCloudData's website and make an inquiry or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll give you my contact information and happy to stay connected. So this is my name and this is my email. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.